My best friend told me mysteriously that her husband had two genitalia. As a doctor, I said it would be best to have it checked. If it was a tumor, surgery would be necessary, otherwise, it could trigger cancer. My best friend snorted derisively. What tumor or no tumor, you just didn't see it. Forget it, you're single, what would you know? I advised her earnestly and patiently, and she finally agreed to go to the hospital. The test results indeed showed a tumor. Who would have thought that? After my best friend's husband had the tumor removed, his abilities as a man kept declining. My best friend instigated her husband, saying that I had caused them to lose their happiness. It must be because you knew my husband had two genitalia and were jealous of me, so you did this. Now he's not like a man, and I've lost my happiness too. A vicious woman like you should die. I was pushed off a building by her husband and fell to my death. When I opened my eyes, I was back to the day my best friend mysteriously came to me. Xiao Ai, come here, I need to tell you something. I don't know if it was heaven answering my prayers, but happiness came too suddenly. My husband when I clearly heard what my best friend Lin Ji said, my pupils suddenly contracted, my back went rigid, cold sweat broke out all over me, and even my fists clenched tightly at that moment. Seeing my expression, Lin Ji reached out and slapped me, a shy smile on her face. Look at you, so hopeless, after all. You've never been married, were you shocked? It's also my first time hearing there's such a good thing. I'm only telling you this because we're close, so don't go spreading it around. It was only then that I noticed there was more than shyness in Lin Ji's eyes. There was also pride and a hint of flaunting. My whole body tensed up, my fists clenched tightly, and even my breathing quickened. It wasn't because what Lin Ji told me was so earth-shattering, but because I was excited that I had truly been reborn to a time before any of the tragedies had happened in my past life. When she asked me out and said she had good news to tell me, I even thought she was pregnant. I specially prepared a big red envelope, only to find out that she told me her husband had two genitalia. He even leaned in and vividly described how they spent the night together. As a doctor, hearing something like that immediately set off alarm bells. You have to know that every organ in the human body serves a purpose, and it's even more impossible to suddenly have something more than others, against the laws of nature. And since her husband wasn't born that way, if something like this happened, there had to be a problem. Given that she grew up with me since childhood and that we had a pretty good relationship, so I suggested that she take her husband to the hospital for an examination, just in case it was a tumor and could be removed early to prevent cancer. Unexpectedly, after hearing what I said, Lin Ji's expression turned extremely ugly, and she made all kinds of excuses, saying this was a sign of exceptional natural talent. Even after I made the suggestion, she gradually distanced herself from me. I thought she had forgotten. So after I finished handling things at the hospital, I messaged her again and tried to talk her out of it with earnest persuasion. I even went out of my way to find reference materials and sent her case studies as well. In the end, she agreed to get checked, and the diagnosis really was a tumor. I happened to be an oncologist, and she said she only trusted me and begged me to be the one to operate. After I agreed to help her, I specifically postponed other surgeries and personally operated on her husband, who knew that after the surgery, as her husband recovered, she angrily accused me of causing a continued decline in her husband's potency as a man. She claimed I was jealous of her and deliberately made her lose her happiness. So she took her husband to the hospital to make a scene and demanded compensation. Even after getting what she wanted, she asked me out, and when I was off guard, had her husband push me off the building to my death. This time, I would never meddle again. 3. Maybe seeing that I still hadn't responded for a long time, she called out again. Xiao Ai, I'm talking to you, did you hear me? I don't even know if everyone in their family has this kind of gene, to grow like this at this age. Conveniently, he has a younger brother. If his brother turns out like this too in the future, how about I introduce him to you? After all, we're best friends. Yes, best friends, I sneered inwardly, but didn't show it. Instead, I gave an awkward smile. No, thanks, I'm not really interested in that. You know, I'm a committed single, and besides, I've got training recently, and I still have to write an academic research report. Where would I find that much time? Lin Ji sighed. That's really a pity, but as doctors, haven't you ever encountered this kind of situation? For example, someone like Zhao Gang, could he have some kind of illness or something? Think about it, how could a man possibly have two penises? So she already knew everything, but then turned around and asked me. So I hurriedly said, I'm not really sure about that, you know, I'm an oncologist, not a urologist, and certainly not an expert in genetics. I've never come across anything like that either. Lin Ji looked at me thoughtfully and said, I see. If you don't know, then forget it. It's not such a big deal anyway. Seeing that the meal was already finished, and thinking of how in my previous life she had watched me with that gleeful look after her husband pushed me down the stairs, I was even less willing to have any more contact with her, so I made an excuse that I still had something to do and hurriedly took my leave, for Lin Ji and I grew up together, at least in my eyes. We were best friends who told each other everything. Her family was of average means, her parents favored sons over daughters, and she had a younger brother who was good for nothing and lazy. Growing up in that environment, she became insecure, sensitive, and timid. It was precisely because of this kind of personality that, at school, she was unwilling to have much contact with her classmates and instead became a target of bullying by some of them. I was different. I was the only child in my family, from a well-off background, with a father and mother who loved me dearly. As a result, I was lively and outgoing. Back then, when I saw her being bullied, I stepped in to help. Not only did I help her with her studies, but I also included her in my social interactions. Gradually, she also became lively and cheerful, no longer so self-conscious, and made more new friends. As I grew up, she told me time and time again that I was her best friend, and even more, her life mentor. What she pursued throughout her life was to become a girl like me. Precisely because of this, I never expected that she would do something like this to me. Now, with the experience of my previous life, I also began to question our friendship. Was Lin Ji truly grateful to me? Over the next few days, Lin Ji also asked me out, but I always turned her down with all sorts of excuses. To prove that what I said was true, I have also never taken a vacation, spending most of my time in the hospital. A busy life made me feel even more vividly that I was indeed still alive. What I didn't expect was that, despite trying every possible way to avoid it, the matter of Lin Ji still ended up entangling me. That night, when I opened the social media app, I saw that the latest Weibo post had gained a new comment. A netizen who had just registered not long ago, with an IP address from the same city, asked, Dar, AI, tell me, can a person have two genitalia? Could it be a tumor? 5. Staring at this message, I didn't reply for a long time. As an oncologist, I should note that I have also undergone real name verification on Weibo. As a result, quite a few netizens leave comments and ask for advice under my Weibo posts. Usually, I respond to them one by one, but looking at this string of comments, I fell silent. The usernames were unfamiliar, and even when I clicked into their profiles, I still saw nothing. Obviously, this was a burner account specifically used to consult me. Thinking back carefully, it seems I encountered something like this in my previous life too. Back then, I never even thought of reminding Lin Ji again. It was precisely because I saw this comment that I remembered. So after making suggestions and analyzing the situation with the netizen, I contacted Lin Ji again. I told her my thoughts and asked her to take her husband to the hospital for an examination. Thinking about it now, how many people could possibly have such a rare disease? It was also because I had no guard in my previous life and thought she was just another patient. It seems now that the person making this inquiry is very likely Lin Ji, or her husband. I quietly posted a status update saying I was in training recently and would be offline for a while. Then I logged out. I even told myself in my heart not to log into the account at all during this period. Who knew that after dodging Weibo and even my family, I still couldn't escape the hospital. Lin Ji came looking for me. When she saw me come out of the operating room, she was the first to rush up to me. Xiao AI, I finally found you. I kept calling you but could never get through. I just have something I want to ask you. Seeing how exhausted I looked, the assistant hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. This surgery was very important. Dar AI held several emergency meetings beforehand to discuss it. After that, there was a surgery that lasted more than 10 hours, so she didn't have time to answer your call. How about you wait until Dr. AI has had some rest before coming back to see her? These words finally convinced Lin Ji. She glanced at me again and said somewhat reluctantly, all right. Avoiding it at all costs is never the answer. In addition, the fact that she came to my door on her own today told me it was time for me to take the initiative. The biggest problem now is, if Lin Ji already knows that her husband might have a tumor, why didn't she take him to the hospital? Last life, I took him to the hospital, but in the end it led to my death. In this life, I ignored her, and she has entangled herself with me again, unless she not only wanted her husband dead, she also wanted me dead. After reaching that conclusion, I broke out in a cold sweat, completely unable to understand why she would do such a thing. In fact, Lin Ji, who came from an unhappy family of origin and lacked love since childhood, dropped out of school and went out to work, and before long married her current husband, Zhao Gang, who cared for her in every possible way. Zhao Gang was the kind of good man the elders spoke of as honest and down-to-earth. He didn't smoke or play cards, and he didn't visit prostitutes or gamble, but he also had no money. Not long after Lin Ji got married, she became pregnant and quit her job to stay at home. Zhao Gang went out to work alone, with one less person earning money and one more mouth to feed. Life became increasingly tight. Every time we met, she would complain to me about this dull life. She said Zhao Gang couldn't make money, that the family's expenses exceeded its income, and she had even started thinking about getting a divorce. But over the past while, she hasn't complained anymore. Her mood has become very good, and a few days ago I even saw her buy a gold necklace. If asked, just say Zhao Gang earned some money and bought it for her. At the time, I still had some doubts. After all, after knowing him for so many years, there was no way Zhao Gang would have thought of buying a gift for Lin Ji. Could it be that Lin Ji had someone else outside? Even if there was only a tiny possibility, once I caught a whiff of it, I planned to investigate further. Certain of this, I began paying close attention to everything Lin Ji did after work. I used the time off I had taken during the week to see what Lin Ji usually did. She was a housewife, and her child was already in elementary school. Her husband left early and came home late, so after the child went to school, she was free during that period. Soon, I noticed something was off that day. After dropping the child off at school, she did not go to the market or head home to tidy up the house like other housewives. Instead, she went to a secluded corner to touch up her lipstick and stood at the street corner waiting. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, she grew a little impatient and made a phone call along the way. A few minutes later, a private car slowly pulled up in front of her. She immediately broke into a smile and slipped inside. As the car was about to start, I hurriedly drove the rental car and followed behind. In the end, I watched helplessly as the two of them went into a hotel, and as the two of them went in arm, I quickly snapped a few photos, then parked the car not far away and waited. About 2 hours later, the two of them came out of the hotel again. Lin Ji's clothes were somewhat disheveled, and the look in her eyes as she gazed at the man was full of satisfaction. The two even started kissing passionately, completely oblivious to everyone else. After getting into the car, I didn't miss any of this evidence. I photographed it all one by one as proof, just in case, of course. Besides all this, in just 2 months, I also uncovered another piece of information. Lin Ji actually took advantage of her free time to buy her husband a high-value accidental death insurance policy. For some reason, when I learned this, my first reaction was to think of the many news stories about people killing their wives or husbands to fraudulently claim insurance. From this, I inferred that she really was plotting something even bigger. To avoid any mishaps, I even moved in secret, just to keep her from pestering me as much as possible. But although Lin Ji didn't contact me again, Zhao Gang reached out to me half a month later. He sent me a WeChat message. "Dar, AI, are you there? There's something I'm not sure if it's convenient to ask you about." I didn't reply right away. Instead, I responded 2 or 3 days later. "You are Lin Ji's husband. If it's inconvenient to ask about my matters, then don't ask." Keeping your distance from your best friend's husband and putting an end to his thoughts. This is the way to keep yourself safe. Fortunately, because of my cold attitude, he did not continue to pester me, but almost as soon as I sent the message, Lin Ji called. I had just been replying to messages a moment ago, but I had no choice but to answer her call. "Gigi, what's wrong?" Lin Ji sounded a little anxious. "It's like this, didn't I tell you last time that Zhao Gang has, that abnormal thing? He's been saying it hurts a lot lately, and I'm wondering whether there's something wrong." At that, my heart sank once again. It seems she's found another roundabout way to ask me for advice. It could be said that, as a doctor, when I suggest examinations to most patients, they are all grateful. Even if they were unhappy inside, they wouldn't pin it on me. But Lin Ji is no ordinary person, much less like most patients, so my answer has to be especially cautious. I can't really say, "Didn't I tell you before?" I'm not a urologist, so I don't really understand this. Could it be that you two have been too Active at night, I teased with a smile, then added, why don't you discuss it with Zhao Gang and see what to do? Just then, a nurse knocked on the door and called for me. I hurriedly answered, then said to her on the other end of the line, Gigi, I've got another surgery here, the patient's condition can't be delayed, I'll call you back later. Without waiting for her to say more, I hung up directly after one surgery. I was already exhausted to the point of collapse, just as I entered the office, finished changing clothes, and was about to rest for a moment. Lin Ji came to the door with Zhao Gang. The little nurse couldn't stop them, and the two of them rushed straight in. The little nurse said aggrievedly, I couldn't stop them. I waved my hand. It's fine, at this rate, even if the little nurse managed to stop them today, she might not be able to stop them tomorrow. After the nurse left, Lin Ji plopped down in front of me. Xiao Ai, what do you think I should do? As she spoke, she covered her face and started crying. Zhao Gang, standing beside her with a dark expression, said nothing, clearly indicating that something major had happened. Seeing that I wasn't reacting and was only focused on her crying, Lin Ji probably felt there was no point in continuing the act, so she simply took the film from Zhao Gang's hand and placed it in front of me. Xiao Ai, I know you're one of the most capable doctors around. About what I asked you before, later Zhao Gang was in so much pain that we went to get him examined, and that's when this was found. She reached out and tapped the line of text in the diagnosis column, her voice once again carrying that hypocritical sobbing tone. The doctor said Zhao Gang has a tumor, not two little bumps, and said he needs surgery. I looked it up online, and people all said it could be a chimera. You doctors should know what a chimera is, right? It means that while still in the womb, one of a pair of twins gets absorbed, and in that case there could be two. Who knew? Xiao Ai, I only trust you, you're the expert in this area. I even saw your photo on the hospital wall. Since we're so close, you should be the one to do the surgery for me. I hadn't forgotten how Lin Ji had treated me in my previous life. Back then, I personally performed surgery on her husband. She was indeed grateful at the time, but what happened afterward? She brought a group of people to the hospital to cause a scene and called me a quack. Then she maliciously edited the video and posted it online, saying I had disabled her husband. She even specially put on bruised makeup and lay on the floor of some hospital I don't know where, pretending to look battered and swollen from being beaten by me. Netizens, unaware of the truth, all spoke up for her as the weaker party. Plus, she was already beautiful, so she gained followers quickly and became an overnight sensation. Afterward, they went back to make a scene and demanded compensation from the hospital, and I became a pariah, with no other choice. The hospital had to issue a notice ordering me to be temporarily suspended. Thinking of everything that happened in my past life, I couldn't help but tremble slightly all over. But before I could open my mouth to refuse, originally standing behind them, their son Zhao Hongfa suddenly pulled open a drawer and rummaged through it. After rummaging around, he frowned and said, Hey, you didn't prepare a gift for me. Seeing that I didn't say anything, he spoke again with displeasure. You don't even have a gift. How stingy. My mom even said you were super rich, you have so much money, and you don't plan to get married or have kids. If you don't give it to me, your godson, then who are you giving it to? I was shocked once again, but soon I let it go. When I was killed in my previous life by the joint scheme of the Linji couple, didn't their son Zhao Hongfa say the same thing? I will always remember the moment when he asked Linji in surprise. He said, Mom, after she dies, does everything belong to me? Even though I'm only your godson, I still count as a son, right? At such a young age, he didn't understand the procedures for inheriting an estate, but he had already set his sights on me. All this time, ever since Zhao Hongfa was born, I had been buying him clothes and toys, and often giving him red envelopes. Even when Lin Ji had Zhao Hongfa call me godmother, I didn't object. I'm not going to be a sucker. Again in this lifetime, Lin Ji seemed to realize that her son's behavior was wrong and immediately stopped him. Hongfa, how can you talk to your godmother like that? I smiled and reminded her, you'd better call me auntie. Also, your husband's tumor can be operated on, but he may not make it that long. The patients scheduled for surgery after him are already lined up 2 months out. Lin Ji froze. 2 months later, Ai Mulyu, our relationship is this good. Can't you cut me some slack? Look, I've already asked about his surgery. If it's removed in time, it isn't even a major operation. For a doctor of your level, it's even more simple. I put on a stern face and calmly refused her. No. Lin Ji was so embarrassed and furious that she snapped, Why, AI Mulu, I finally get it. The reason you were so close to me was really just to use me as a foil, wasn't it? You come from a good family, you're rich, and you're highly educated. I'm telling you. Don't look down on poor people, I explained again. Linji, do you not understand what I'm saying? I just said that because there are patients waiting in line, if you want me to operate on your husband, fine, but he'll have to wait in line too, but I absolutely can't break the rules because of your relationship with me. Who knew that Linji simply pulled an envelope out of her bag and threw it at me? Isn't it just that I didn't give you a red envelope? I'll give you one. Now that you've taken the red envelope, you can operate on my husband, right? I picked up the envelope and stuffed it back into Linji's arms. I said the hospital has its own rules, you're insulting the profession of doctor. This time, Linji said nothing more and left angrily with the father and son. I thought this matter would end there, at the very least. It would shatter Linji's dream. Who would have thought that when I woke up, I would once again see a suffocating scene? A doctor from the same department privately sent me a screenshot from a video, and there, unmistakably, was a scene of me sitting in my office, holding a red envelope, and the person handing over the red envelope was Linji. The doctor from the same department asked, AI, take a look, is this you? Someone has posted you online. Although I felt an inexplicable sense of unease, after thinking it over carefully, I realized that yesterday when Linji handed me the red envelope, I didn't accept it. Even if someone had filmed it and put it online, it would only prove that I'm an upright doctor who doesn't take red envelopes or use connections, so I confirmed his inquiry. It's me. Then the doctor sent another message. This is bad. Someone's complaining about you, saying that you privately take red envelopes, and if you don't get paid, you won't operate on the patient. This video already has thousands of likes now, and quite a few people are cursing you online. If it keeps blowing up like this, it'll be bad for you. How about this? Come to the hospital in a low profile and explain it to the dean yourself. I rubbed my temples. I had been far too exhausted after the surgery yesterday, and the dean had personally told me I could come to the hospital later today. I hadn't expected that, just as the workday had only barely started. Something like this would happen with no other choice. I had to get dressed and set off for the hospital. While reviewing the screenshots and the video they sent me on the way, I learned that Linji had secretly recorded it. Not only had she edited it, she had also reversed the footage, turning the scene where I refused the red envelope into one where I accepted it. What's more, even her son, Zhao Hongfa, was portrayed as the victim in the video. Some netizens even began doxing me on their own, publicly posting my name, the hospital where I worked, and other information online. After learning the truth, I contacted the doctors in the department while I was still in the car. I asked them to pull up the surveillance footage and release it immediately to clarify the facts. By the time I arrived at the hospital, that video had already been posted. I quickly bought some traffic to suppress Linji's false rumors. When I arrived at the dean's office, I also explained the whole story from beginning to end. After hearing it, the dean immediately recorded a video himself and posted it, saying he could guarantee with his character that I was absolutely not that kind of person, perhaps because the matter had not spread online as quickly as it had in my previous life after Linji caused a scene. And because the dean's clarification video and the surveillance footage had taken effect, the netizens who saw it learned the truth and expressed their support for me one after another. Some even vowed to seek justice for me, saying that if everyone slandered doctors like this, then who would dare to apply for medical school in the future? A country without doctors is the most terrifying of all. Many of my patients who learned about this also came forward to show their support. With everyone working together, Linji's scheme was thwarted. Those who tried to smear me online ended up becoming the targets of condemnation from netizens. Linji tucked her tail between her legs and behaved herself, never daring to show her face on the internet again. It seemed as though things had come to an end with Linji's disappearance from public view, and the same is true on the internet. New things happen every day, so not long after, the hype around this matter died down and was forgotten by people, but I still did not let my guard down, because I knew that with Linji's personality of never giving up until she achieved her goal, she would absolutely not stop so easily. Sure enough, by chance, I ran into the Linji couple again. Seeing the two of them, I quickly hid to the side and listened to them talk. Linji's face looked very ugly, full of righteous indignation, but her voice was still kept very low when she spoke. Honey, you saw it too. That bitch AI Muliu is just jealous of us. she's an old spinster who hasn't had a man to satisfy her, so she's gone warped inside. We're such good friends, and she still wouldn't operate on you, saying something about hospital regulations. She was clearly looking down on me, brother gang. There are some things I didn't dare tell you before, but now I don't really care that much anymore. Anyway, she doesn't treat me as a friend, perhaps because of the torment of illness. Zhao Gang's complexion wasn't very good either. Hearing this, he only asked, "What is it?" Seeing that Zhao Gang didn't seem to react much, Lin Ji went on, "She said you weren't a man, that you're poor and not up to it. She also said that marrying you was ruining me, and tried to talk me into divorcing you. She even wanted to introduce me to male doctors in their department with good family backgrounds and status." Zhao Gang exploded at once. What the hell is she spouting? She dares say I'm not up to it. I'll fucking kill her. I was startled by Zhao Gang's words. Soon, I guessed that perhaps Lin Ji had instigated him the same way in my previous life as well. Lin Ji seemed worried that her voice was too loud, so she soothed Zhao Gang for a while, and finally said, "Anyway, what I mean is, if we're going to do it, we should do it sooner rather than later. A lot of people hate him now, and no one will suspect us too much. Calm down for now. When I get back, I'll think of a way to make sure it's flawless." I didn't hear what else they said after that. I only saw them get into the car and drive away without a care. Coincidentally, the next day, just before I was about to get off work, I received a call from Lin Ji. "Xiao Ai, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I was confused for a moment and did something wrong. I deserve to die." "Xiao Ai, you really are the person I admire most. That day I was just so anxious that I did something like that. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I only beg you to give me a chance to apologize to you face to face." "Okay." After she finished speaking, I said, "I forgive you, so there's no need to apologize to me in person anymore." Lin Ji clearly hadn't expected me to be so straightforward. After a moment of surprise, she said, "No, you have to apologize to me in person. How about this? I've almost finished making dinner, so why don't you come to my place later? I made your favorite dishes." I still refused. "Really, there's no need. I already made plans with someone today. I'll have my husband pick you up at the entrance of your hospital. It's settled." The phone was hung up the moment she finished her last sentence. It seemed she still hadn't given up. I didn't get off work. Instead, I voluntarily worked overtime. I just wanted to avoid the time when Zhao Gang would come looking for me. Just as I felt the time was about right and was getting ready to change clothes and leave, several nurses rushed past, pushing a girl covered in blood toward the emergency room. On closer inspection, I saw that the girl was wearing the same clothes as I was. For some reason, whenever I looked at those clothes, I always had a bad feeling. After asking the other nurses nearby, I found out that the girl had come to the hospital to pick up medication. As soon as she walked out of the hospital, someone rushed up to her, stabbed her 3 times, and then fled. The other person was wearing a mask and sunglasses, so no one could see their true face. I was still shaken, and the police happened to arrive at that moment. When I went into the monitoring room with them and looked at the security footage, I could tell who this person was. Short and stocky, overweight. I recognized him even fully covered up. This person was Lin Ji's husband, Zhao Gang. Thanks to the doctor's rescue efforts, that girl was out of danger, and I also identified through the police that this person was very likely Zhao Gang. 3. The police would, of course, question my identification, and I told them what had happened before, including how Zhao Gang and his wife had smeared my reputation. Of course, I never revealed even the slightest hint about my rebirth. Upon hearing me say that those 2 people had even once plotted to kill me, the police immediately became alert. After obtaining approval from their superiors, they went to Lin Ji's home, but they still came up empty, because apart from Lin Ji and her son, there wasn't even a trace of Zhao Gang to be seen. In the end, the police could only lie in wait outside Lin Ji's house, so they could keep an eye on any movement. They even sent a few police officers to my home to keep watch. Even so, I was still caught by Zhao Gang. He waited until I had finished the surgery and was resting in the office, then put on a white coat and disguised himself as a doctor, sneaked in, and pressed a knife against my throat. "Last time you were lucky and let that person take the fall for you. This time, you won't be so lucky. As long as the scalpel in my hand makes just the slightest cut, even the great immortal can't save you." I tried hard to stay calm and negotiate with him. "Brother Zhao, I don't understand. Why do you want to drive me to my death? I only said I'd operate on you later, not that I wouldn't help you." Zhao Gang sneered. "You stinking bitch, stop spouting nonsense here. Lin Ji told me everything. You were behind my back, egging me on to divorce her, and even said I wasn't a real man, impotent down there. Do you know, men hate being told they're no good the most, so killing one is killing, killing two is still killing, go die." I hurriedly explained, "I never said that, really. If you don't believe me, I can show you the chat history. If you still don't believe me, you can take my phone and open the chat between me and Lin Ji to see for yourself. I'm not lying to you," Zhao Gang said. "Take it yourself. Don't even think of distracting me." I trembled as I agreed, took out my phone from my pocket, opened WeChat, and showed him the chat history. Between Lin Ji and me in it, Lin Ji did complain about him having no money, but I talked her out of it. I said that Brother Gang was honest, didn't visit brothels or gamble, and that it wasn't that I didn't want to get married, but that I couldn't find a good man like Brother Gang. Apart from that, the only one complaining about Zhao Gang's shortcomings was Lin Ji. While I had always played the role of a peacemaker from start to finish, Zhao Gang was stunned. How is that possible? That damn bitch actually dared to play me. I spoke again. "I think I know why she was so eager for you to kill me. Because I discovered her secret. Back then, I took photos and went to her, asking her to live a good life with you. She agreed, but I never expected." I showed Zhao Gang the photos I had previously taken of Lin Ji cheating, and after seeing them, Zhao Gang became even angrier. She actually went out and found another man, and even wanted to use me to kill someone else. I kept stabbing at her. "She also bought accident insurance for you. I'm afraid even if you didn't kill me, you'd still die in an accident. Also, hasn't she been trying to keep you from going to the hospital to see a doctor? Think about it, really think about it." Zhao Gang ground his teeth loudly. "She wants me dead. Fine, then I'll send her to hell first. For, I hope Zhao Gang and Lin Ji will perish together." So when Zhao Gang left me, I still did not call the police. Instead, I pretended to call the squad leader in charge and asked whether Zhao Gang had gone home. Just as the squad leader was about to speak, he heard another subordinate tell him that something had happened at Zhao Gang's home. I don't know what had happened. Upon hearing this, the squad leader hurriedly hung up the phone. I felt a little uneasy, but also somewhat excited. In the end, I couldn't hold myself back and planned to take a taxi to Zhao Gang's house to see what exactly had happened. Just then, Lin Ji was pushed in head-on, covered in blood, blocking my steps. The squad leader who came in with her watched as the person was pushed into the operating room, and briefly explained the situation to me. It was her husband who stabbed her. The exact reason is still unclear. Whether he can survive after being stabbed in a vital area is still unknown. Dar AI, we know about the matter between you and Lin Ji, but some things still have to rely on the power of the law. I nodded. I understand that. Don't worry, Captain, I'm only an oncologist, so I don't know much about this kind of emergency treatment, but all the doctors in our hospital are conscientious. They will do everything they can. After saying that, I asked again, "What about Zhao Gang?" The captain said, "He has already been arrested." I nodded, then glanced at the watch on my wrist. "I'm off work. I'll go change first. Talk later." In the end, I still couldn't hold back and went to the ER to visit Lin Ji. She was still unconscious, and the bleeding was nearly impossible to stop. Bag after bag of plasma was transfused, but in the end, the attending physician still shook his head. No, the vital organs were injured, and on top of that, by the time she was brought here, it was a little too late. There was no time. Perhaps it was a burst of last strength before death. The unconscious Lin Ji slowly opened her eyes. The first time she saw me, she opened her mouth and asked, "Why?" I leaned closer to her. "You want to know why he didn't kill me?" Lin Ji nodded. I opened my phone and tapped her profile picture. Inside were the chat records between her and me. She widened her eyes and, coughing up blood, said, "No, I didn't. This isn't." I didn't answer. Instead, still smiling, I deleted the chat records right in front of her. She opened her mouth, and finally said haltingly, "I remember now. You're back, aren't you, Amoryu? I don't believe I'm the only one who can be reborn." Then, she completely closed her eyes. As she was right, the person with her profile picture in the chat history was not her. It was a secondary account I registered, using her avatar and renaming it to Lin Ji, pretending to be her specifically for Zhao Gang to see. On top of that, by imitating her tone to complain to me and confide in me, back and forth, Zhao Gang, who was already angry, was simply not going to observe carefully. After all, I had known all along that the two of them were plotting to kill me. So how could I not make more preparations? Relying on the police was one thing. I also had to be fully prepared myself. Zhao Gang is a reckless brute, impulsive and quick-tempered, and he even hits people. Lin Ji once came to meet a vent, and she complained a lot about Zhao Gang beating her. I did indeed advise her to get a divorce, and everything I said was for her own good, but every time she opened up to me, she never once decided to leave. I've figured it out. Some people's suffering is what they deserve. If you interfere by force, you'll only suffer the backlash last life. He could be incited by Lin Ji to kill me, this life. I can likewise sow discord between them and make him kill Lin Ji. Zhao Gang went to prison, and Lin Ji died in the emergency room. Lin Ji's mother had long since remarried someone else. Her mother, who had no feelings for her at all, would not come to collect her body as her only good best friend. Of course I had to help her out. I directly found someone from the funeral home to take her away for cremation, and along the way I also contacted the most highly respected master. I told the master that Lin Ji was a wrongfully dead ghost and needed to be suppressed, preferably the kind that could never be reincarnated. Otherwise she would turn into a vengeful spirit and bring harm to the mortal world. The master agreed and gathered the other fellow monks from the temple to recite scriptures together and suppress her. Even if only Lin Ji's ashes remained, I would send them to the temple and entrust them to the masters there. Only after I had done everything did I finally feel completely at ease. However, that night I still dreamed about Lin Ji. I dreamed that after Lin Ji died, his limbs were bound by chains, and he was shouting abuse at me. She cursed me for stopping her from leaving, cursed heaven for being unfair, and asked why it wouldn't let her be reborn too, and I only gave her one sentence: not everyone gets a chance to be reborn, especially someone like you who has done nothing but evil. Don't worry, I'll go to the temple every month to visit you, until the monk tells me that your soul has already vanished into dust. I kept my word. The next day, I went to the temple again. I told the monk about my dream, and upon hearing it, the monk chanted, Amit Babuddha. Then he said, heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. I had originally intended to redeem her, but I never expected her to be so stubborn and unrepentant. This dream made the monk resolve to reduce her to ashes and smoke. As for Zhao Gang, for attempted murder and the particularly heinous circumstances of the case, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison after confessing to his crimes. The day Zhao Gang was sentenced, Lin Ji and our mutual friend saw how pitiful Zhao Gang and Lin Ji's son was and made a suggestion. Dar, Ai, you're Zhao Hongfa's godmother, why don't you adopt him? A child like him has lost his mother and now his father is in prison. He's truly pitiful. After all, with your circumstances, raising one child would be more than manageable. Besides, you're a committed single, you can become a mother without pain, and when the child grows up, he can still support you in your old age. I smiled and asked, do you support your father and mother? My friend was stunned and was left speechless by my retort. I asked again, aren't you unmarried too? Why don't you adopt him? My friend backed away repeatedly in fright. Well, I'm in no position to do that. I was just saying it. In the end, the court ruled that Zhao Hong, who had no guardian, be sent to an orphanage. As for me, of course I'm living the life I didn't get to enjoy in my previous life. After hearing this story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin a new story. My younger half-brother was as beautiful as a girl, and from childhood countless men coveted him, wanting to take him into their homes. To protect him, I volunteered to enter the palace and serve the old emperor. He did not hesitate to bear the infamy of a seductive concubine, lifting his half-brother all the way to the position of left chancellor. The day Prince Qi breached the imperial capital, the soldiers tore my clothes apart with ferocious grins, yet my half-brother stood before me with his hands behind his back, his eyes full of hatred. Since childhood, I have told you that my only passion is for mountains and rivers, but for the sake of securing your position, you forced me into this filthy official world. What happened to you is your own fault. So, my protection of my younger half-brother was, in his eyes, nothing more than shackles from beginning to end. In the end, I was torn limb from limb at my younger half-brother's command. If I could do it all over again, I would never meddle again. I'd let him live in peace as a catamite locked away in the back courtyard by a man. For the 5th time, the maid came knocking at the door, her tone anxious. Miss, the young master left a letter and is now making a fuss about running away from home. I opened the door calmly and instructed, no need to stop him. If he wants to leave, let him go. The maidservants could not hide the surprise in their eyes. Everyone in the manor knew that I cared most about my younger half-brother. In the past, whenever anything involved him, I would always handle it immediately. This was the first time he had ever been so unconcerned. Before the maid could go and carry out the order, my younger half-brother barged into my room first. Everything on the dressing table was smashed to the floor. Still not satisfied, my younger half-brother picked up a teacup and hurled it at me. The maid rushed over to shield me, and the teacup smashed against her temple, instantly swelling red and bruised. "Are you going to the Prince Chi's residence for a banquet today? Prince Chi has only recently returned from touring Jiangnan, and I must get to know him and hear all about the beauty of Jiangnan's scenery. No matter what, you have to take me with you this time, or else I'll run away from home and never come back." My half-brother's words, both directly and indirectly, were full of praise for the Prince of Qi. After following me into the carriage, my half-brother still couldn't believe I would agree so easily. All the way there, he watched me warily, afraid I would say something and have him sent back to the manor. At the banquet, as soon as my half-brother appeared, he was surrounded by the young men of noble families. At first, everyone was wary of me. After some probing actions, seeing that I had no reaction at all, they gradually grew bolder. Under the pretext of drunkenness, they repeatedly made physical advances toward the younger half-brother. When a servant tried to warn him, he was instead scolded by the drunken younger half-brother. I watched coldly as the people at the banquet grew increasingly brazen toward my younger half-brother. On this day in my previous life, I had not brought my younger half-brother to the banquet, so he ran away from home and slipped off by himself to the Prince Chi's residence. I exhausted every means I had to rush over and stop Prince Chi from making improper advances toward him, so much so that after the King of Qi forced the palace, he subjected me to all manner of torment. Fortunately, this mistake can now be corrected. My half-brother was warmly invited by the King of Qi to stay the night. Even the young servant could tell there was ill intent behind it, asked me to step in and stop it. Young master is the only male heir of the general's residence, and the only person Miss can rely on in the future is young master. This servant was quite loyal, but unfortunately he followed a master who couldn't tell right from wrong. The younger illegitimate brother had been strikingly beautiful since childhood, even 3 parts more alluring than a woman. Many high-ranking and powerful people took a liking to him, yet the younger half-brother was utterly unsuspecting. When father was still alive, he could still keep him in check to some extent. After father passed away, I kept my half-brother confined in the manor and forced him to study and strive to improve himself, only so that in the future he can hold in his hands the right to protect himself. Yet he was devoted to mountains and rivers, with his heart set on roaming freely among the hills, waters, forests, and fields. I rebuked him. Those pretentious, sentimental poets may seem free, but once a little rain, dew, frost, or wind comes along, they can't bear it. Look at the powerful courtiers now in favor at court. They get whatever they want. Most importantly, no one dares to be rude to them. That is true freedom. My half-brother never mentioned his ambitions again. Later, I relied on my father's achievements and volunteered to enter the palace, using the emperor's favor, and despite the minister's opposition, I gradually elevated my half-brother to the position of left chancellor. In the end, my younger half-brother resented me for taking away his freedom. He believed that from beginning to end, I was the one who lusted after power. I deliberately let the King of Qi, who had been driven back to his fief, march straight into the imperial city, and after the city fell, I watched as I was humiliated. I forced myself every day to curry favor with those old foxes in official circles, yet you used my power in the previous court to bully others in the harem. Even when I make 1 or 2 close friends, you still have to stop me. I lay there on the ground, barely clinging to life. My younger half-brother didn't know that the older confidant he spoke of, the right chancellor, was in fact the person who coveted him the most, and the right chancellor had a peculiar taste. He liked nothing more than whipping and tormenting people on the bed. 3. After dismissing the servant boy, I swept my sleeve and rose from the seat. The commotion behind me grew louder. The main performance was just about to begin. After returning home alone, I slept until the sun was high in the sky. For several days in a row, my half-brother did not return home. The person sent to the Prince of Qi's residence was easily dismissed. They said my half-brother had left that very night. I knew those were nothing but excuses. I was still figuring out how to bring my half-brother's affair with the Prince of Qi out into the open before everyone. The news from the palace caught me off guard. First, an inner attendant came to the residence to proclaim the imperial decree. The emperor wanted to See me, looking at the familiar furnishings in the imperial study before me. I nearly couldn't hold back my tears. The humiliation of being insulted here in my previous life surged over me again. The emperor somehow heard that his half-brother had gone missing. My father died for the country, so he would certainly look after my younger brother and me. The emperor looked at me with those deep eyes, as if he had countless words hidden away that he wanted to say, but clearly, this should have been the first time I met him in this life. A thought occurred to me: if it were true, many things would become much simpler, for, when my half-brother was taken out of the Prince Chi's residence by the government soldiers, he looked utterly haggard. His beauty, on the other hand, seemed even more striking than before. Prince Chi, walking behind him with his hands behind his back, looked absolutely radiant. My half-brother spotted me in the crowd at a glance, broke free from the government soldiers, and rushed toward me. I caught a glimpse at once of his lips, bright red, and of several conspicuous red marks in the places where his collar failed to cover. My half-brother launched into a barrage of accusations. "Did you bring these people to seize me and take me back to the manor? You used to keep me under your thumb, and I let it go, but now I'm over 16, I'm only staying a few days at a good friend's house on a whim, and you want to control even that." The Prince of Chi was adding fuel to the fire. From the sidelines, "My half-brother is returning home with me today. If we want to meet again, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Although Miss Gu is young Master Gu's legitimate elder sister, the two of you were not born of the same mother. In the end, you have no right to restrain him." Prince Chi's hand moved naturally to rest on his younger brother's waist. The younger half-brother showed no reaction at all, but was moved that the Prince of Chi had spoken up for him. I stepped forward, and the younger half-brother shrank even further into the Prince of Chi's arms. Their posture drew a couple of amused chuckles from the crowd. "This young master of the general's residence is as beautiful as a woman." Standing beside the Prince of Chi, "They really do look like a match made in heaven," someone chimed in opportunistically. "Then wouldn't Miss Gu become the vicious legitimate sister who tears apart a pair of lovebirds?" The noisy chatter grew louder and louder, and both the Prince of Chi and his illegitimate younger brother heard every word. The Prince of Chi narrowed his eyes in pleasure and pinched his illegitimate younger brother's waist. The half-brother's body stiffened. Only then did he seem to react, immediately putting some distance between himself and the King of Chi, hiding behind me, and urging me to return to the estate. Along the way, I sized up my half-brother without letting on. He asked me excitedly, "Is what elder sister just said true? Will you really no longer keep me confined and forbid me from leaving the residence in the future?" I nodded. "And you won't interfere with whom I befriend?" I nodded again. My younger half-brother warmly tried to take my hand when we were children. Whenever I fulfilled one of his wishes, he liked to do this time. I subtly stepped aside. My younger half-brother began to complain. The bed was clearly covered in brocade, but after sleeping for a few days, he felt a bit uncomfortable in his body. I glanced at his buttocks, which had been unconsciously tilted since he got on the carriage. "This is just the beginning." 5. My younger half-brother attended various invitations every day. Among them, the Prince of Chi invited him the most often. Each time he returned to the residence, he looked utterly listless. Rumors began to spread in the streets that my younger half-brother had become the Prince of Chi's kept beloved. He was pelted with rotten eggs on the way back to the mansion. That person angrily accused the concubine-born younger brother. "General Gu is a great hero who protects the nation and defends the country. What you're doing is tarnishing the general's reputation as a man, yet submitting beneath another man. Shameless." My younger half-brother flew into a rage at me, forcing me to step forward and settle the matter. "They weren't wrong. How am I supposed to control it?" My younger half-brother's face flushed red, his features even more vivid and striking than before. "Even you are slandering me. King Chi and I are friends in the noblest sense, nothing like the filthy things you're imagining." Seeing that I remained unmoved, he issued the order himself. He ordered everyone in the manor out, and anyone caught spreading rumors would be sent to the authorities. The servants stood respectfully behind me. No one obeyed his command. They all waited for my instructions. My half-brother pointed at my hand, trembling uncontrollably. He demanded that I hand over the authority to manage the household. "I am the male heir of the general's mansion, the master of the general's mansion. You're nothing but a woman who will marry out sooner or later. What right do you have to keep controlling the household all the time?" I neither agreed nor refused. "I am waiting." A maid lifted the curtain and came in, reporting, "Elders of the clan that you invited have already arrived at the ancestral hall. Please go over with the young master." Earlier, my half-brother's servant had reminded me, the only male heir in the general's residence is the support of my half-brother. No one knows whether this support counts. It only counts if I nod. My half-brother walked ahead of me, unable to hide his smugness in his words. Elders of the clan must have found out I'd been wronged and have come to stand up for me, for the sake of our past bond. If you admit your mistake to me now, I can still plead for you before the clan elders. My half-brother thought I had been scared senseless and spent the whole way scheming how to make me bow my head and apologize. After stepping into the ancestral hall, he ingratiatingly greeted every clan elder. I glanced at my half-brother and took out the family genealogy. In front of the clan elders, he announced that his half-brother would be expelled from the general's residence. From this day on, he would no longer be a member of the general's residence. The half-brother was stunned, and his earlier arrogance vanished as he said in panic, "You're just a woman, what right do you have to drive me out of the family?" I opened the genealogy and asked the clan elder to take a look. There was no sign of my illegitimate younger brother Gu Jinchong's name in the genealogy at all. My illegitimate younger brother refused to believe it, snatched the genealogy over, and carefully flipped through it. After confirming that his name really wasn't there, he shouted that the genealogy was fake. But no one paid him any attention. The clan elders frowned and asked me what was going on. Gu Jinchong was originally the son of a concubine outside the family. After my father brought him back, he fabricated a background for him and had him recognize one of the concubines in the mansion as his mother. My grandfather did not approve and refused to let Gu Jinchong be entered into the clan genealogy. After holding on until my grandfather had just passed away, my father immediately received the imperial edict to set out on campaign. He was gravely wounded along the way, and by the time he returned, he was already on the verge of death. Before he died, he entrusted me with the matter of adding Gu Jinchong to the family genealogy. In my previous life, I only arranged everything right before entering the palace. If the little servant hadn't brought it up, I would have almost forgotten about it. Gu Jinchong didn't believe it, but he couldn't argue with the facts. Even if I'm not yet registered in the clan genealogy, I am still the only son under father's knee. If you want to drive me out of the household, could it be that you're trying to cut off the bloodline of the general's residence? The clan elders were all talking at once, and most felt that Gu Jinchong had a point. Seeing the clan elders' reaction, the illegitimate younger brother grew smug again. Right now, it's you who are begging to have my name added to the genealogy. If you want my agreement, you'll have to agree to one condition: remove Gu Jinyan's name from the clan genealogy for me. The clan elder was in a difficult position and didn't want to offend either side. I shot the clan chief a look. The clan chief, who had not said a word from beginning to end, cleared his throat. Regarding the matter of the descendants of the general's manor, Gu Jinyan and I have already discussed it. We will adopt a male child from the clan into her mother's name. As a legitimate descendant of the general's manor, the concubine-born younger brother insisted that he was the father's true bloodline. The clan leader's words: the concubine-born younger brother now has a tarnished reputation outside and is unfit to be a descendant of the general's manor, prompted the other clan elders to nod in agreement. Normally, when there is biological bloodline, adoption is generally not done. The clan elder was willing to side with me only because I had promised to adopt his youngest grandson, and the rumors I spread about my illegitimate younger brother could at least, on the surface, effectively silence the other clan elders. Even though Gu Jinchong was unwilling, I still had him thrown out of the general's residence that very day. The person sent to follow Gu Jinchong reported that he had planned to seek refuge with Prince Qi that night, but was intercepted and taken away by the right chancellor on the way. Gu Jinchong was taken away by the right chancellor, and I knew what he would be subjected to. It seemed that the curse from Gu Jinchong in my previous life was still echoing in my ears. Someone as vain and materialistic as you is only fit to stay in the mud for your entire life. In this life, it was Gu Jinchong who would be stuck as mud for the rest of his life. In the prime minister's residence, Gu Jinchong was tied up tightly on the bed. Through the haze, he caught a glimpse of someone sitting in front of the bed. Just as he was about to sit up, in the next instant, Gu Jinchong let out a terrified scream. "Right, Prime Minister, what do you want to do?" Seeing that the man had woken up, the right Prime Minister lashed down with the whip in his hand. He didn't give Gu Jinchong time to react. The whip struck Gu Jinchong. Besides the pain, Gu Jinchong's whole body felt as if it were burning with fire. He recognized the man before him. He was the current right chancellor. When the right chancellor was young, he had traveled all over the world, and Gu Jincheng had once admired him the most. The man now, wearing a vicious grin as he lashed him with a whip, seemed like a completely different person. The more he struggled, the heavier the whip lashes on his body became. The beads of blood on his body fell onto the brocade, staining it into clusters of red plum blossoms. Gu Jincheng tried to frighten the right minister. I am the son of General Gu. If you don't release me at once, my legitimate elder sister will surely file a complaint before His Majesty. The right chancellor smiled meaninglessly. You've already been driven out of the general's residence. Do you think your legitimate elder sister will still care about you? A pretty boy like you was born to be played with. If you behave yourself, this chancellor will be good to you. The tattered clothes were all whipped open. Gu Jincheng felt an indescribable restlessness as he watched the right chancellor's hand, like dry tree bark, reach over and stroke his back. Gu Jincheng's eyes nearly split with rage. He was utterly scared out of his wits, crying tears and snot. She shouted for her legitimate elder sister to save her, yet she could never shake him off by even the slightest bit. Her body and mind both ached at this moment. She truly regretted it every day in the right chancellor's residence. Gu Jincheng felt that life was worse than death. What began as regret gradually gave way to hatred for his elder sister. It wasn't that he had never thought of ending it all in death. The desire for revenge against Gu Jinyan kept him going. Feigning compliance with the right chancellor in bed, he finally got the right chancellor to relent and stop confining him. He was temporarily free, but that freedom was too false, too grandiose. Just as I had imagined, Gu Jincheng was trapped by the right chancellor in the inner residence and became his favored captive. Hemostatic ointments flowed into the right chancellor's residence like water, day after day without pause. It was my birthday, and I was in a great mood, so I decided to hold a grand banquet earlier. Rumors had spread through the palace that I would be entering the emperor's harem as his empress. The high officials and nobles in the capital, eager to curry favor, all came to attend my birthday banquet. Just as the hosts and guests were enjoying themselves, Gu Jincheng suddenly barged in. I didn't expect the right chancellor to actually let him out. He looked far worse than before. His face was deathly pale, and if you got close enough, you could even smell the blood. The hatred in his eyes when he looked at me was even stronger than in my previous life, as if he wanted nothing more than to cut me down on the spot. Gu Jincheng had come prepared. In front of all the guests, he accused me of having an affair with the servant standing guard at the door. You, a woman past her prime and no longer chaste, entered the palace by deceiving the emperor. The people at the banquet erupted in an uproar, their eyes darting back and forth between me and the servant. The servant had already knelt down swiftly the moment Gu Jincheng finished speaking. While kowtowing, he kept crying that he was being framed, as if afraid no one would believe him. Gu Jincheng pointed to the sachet at the servant's waist and said, "There are love letters inside, personally written by Gu Jinyan, that wanton slut, to this servant. They are the token of their pledge of love." I was so enraged by Gu Jincheng's shamelessness that I laughed out loud. 3 months ago, Gu Jincheng fell into the water in the depth of winter. He kept running a fever and never woke up. I knelt for 3 days and 3 nights before finally obtaining a remedy from the abbot of Wenyuan Temple. Distribute this blood-written letter of my kinship and longing for Gu Jincheng to those with abundant young energy to keep close to their bodies, to borrow others' vital energy to help Gu Jincheng recover. What was once painstaking effort has now been used by him to slander me. The servant was already trembling like a sieve and could care less about anything else. While pulling out the slip of paper, he loudly protested, "May all the honored guests see clearly, this was obtained back then when the young lady borrowed this lowly one's yang energy to help the young master awaken. Every servant in the manor has a copy. If you do not believe it, you may immediately order someone to inspect it. This lowly one's life is worthless and death would be no loss at all. I would never dare to tarnish the young lady's good name." Everyone at the table immediately showed an expression of awe. So that's how it is. Their gazes at Gu Jincheng carried disdain. Seeing me remain completely calm, Gu Jincheng, who had been so adamant earlier, was now thrown into confusion. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Before I could answer, Gu Jincheng seemed to seize a lifeline and pointed at my personal maid, demanding, "I clearly heard you instruct this maid to take 50 taels of silver from your private account and give it to a servant. How do you explain that? A servant's monthly wage is only a few dozen won. If there were nothing improper between you two, on what grounds did you give him money?" I fell silent for a moment. Gu Jincheng became even more certain of his suspicion, insisting that I had been secretly involved with a servant. A tear slipped from my eye as I looked at Gu Jinchong sadly. Could it be that you've already forgotten? A month ago, Gu Jinchong had climbed over the wall and sneaked out of the manor as soon as he left the residence. He was knocked unconscious and knew nothing of what happened. By the time he woke up, he had already been brought back to the residence. At the time, Gu Jinchong insisted that I had arranged for people to lie in wait by the wall corner to catch him. The fact was, after being knocked out, he was sold into a male brothel. The servant noticed something was wrong, chased after him, and redeemed him back. The silver was money the servant got by pawning a family heirloom, so of course I had to return the money to him. Being sold into the Nanfeng Pavilion is disgraceful after all, so I kept it hidden and didn't say anything. If you don't believe me, the brothel keeper at the Nanfeng Pavilion is the witness. I choked up, grieving for the past. I had misplaced my trust in Gu Jinchong was completely speechless. The people at the banquet were all discussing it in low voices. Miss Gu is truly pitiful. The younger brother she's cared for all these years turned out to be an ungrateful ingrate. There were rumors before that Miss Gu drove her younger half-brother out of the family home in order to seize the family fortune for herself. Looking at it now, a wretch who repays kindness with enmity like this would have been driven out long ago if it were me. Everyone pointed at Gu Jinchong and criticized him. Some hot-tempered ones even forced him down to his knees to apologize to me. Gu Jinchong clenched his teeth and squeezed out a few words before the others finally let him go. Before leaving, Gu Jinchong hurled harsh words, saying he wouldn't let me have an easy time. I caught up with him, and in a secluded spot, my tears vanished in an instant. There was no trace left of the heartbroken, devastated look I had just shown in front of everyone. Smiling, I jabbed at Gu Jinchong's sore spot. Have you been well lately? Weren't you always the biggest admirer of the Right Chancellor? Now that you're living in his residence, you can ask him for guidance to your heart's content. I only hope it isn't on the bed. Gu Jinchong's clenched fists trembled as he questioned her with red-rimmed eyes. Gu Jinyin, you know everything, don't you? It's all your fault. You knew everything clearly. If you knew I was going out of the manor to meet certain people, why didn't you stop me? You did that on purpose. You deliberately made me end up having to depend on a man older than my father, living without dignity like some kept boy. You just can't stand seeing me do well. Aren't you greedy for wealth and status? Since you drove me to this, I'll destroy your dream of riches and glory. I gave up a man's dignity and took the initiative to serve that old man, the Right Chancellor. He promised he would help me. I won't just stand by and watch you go into the palace to enjoy a life of luxury. The Right Chancellor took the lead in submitting a memorial, opposing the Emperor's appointment of me as Empress. In the Imperial study, the Emperor tossed a stack of memorials at me. They were all memorials from the Right Chancellor's faction opposing my being made Empress. The Emperor smiled and shook his head. I didn't expect your younger brother to be so stupid as to walk right into the trap. But that's also thanks to the information you deliberately or inadvertently leaked to the Right Chancellor. Since the late Empress passed away, the Right Chancellor has already pressured the Emperor more than once. He wants his legitimate granddaughter to enter the Eastern Palace as its mistress. That fool Gu Jinchong was used by both sides. He had it coming. On the way back to the manor, the carriage stopped halfway. The maid said that someone was arguing ahead, and too many people were watching, blocking the road. I ordered the coachman to take another route. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Isn't that the carriage of the general's residence? Could Miss Gu be inside? The high and mighty knew that Gu Jinchong had been driven out of the general's residence by me, but very few ordinary people were aware of it. The crowd clamored noisily, asking me to judge what was right and wrong. In front of the wonton stall, Gu Jinchong was stopped by a middle-aged man. Miss Gu, please judge for yourself. I was chatting with a friend when your brother rushed out and punched me without saying a word. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll take this to the magistrate's office and demand justice. The onlookers around them all chimed in, explaining the cause and effect of what had happened. The middle-aged man was chatting with his friend while eating wontons, calling Gu Jinchong a little whore who sells his ass disgraces the lifetime reputation of father, the Grand General. Gu Jinchong had previously been involved in something improper with the Prince of Qi, and now he had lowered himself to crawl into the Right Chancellor's bed. Unluckily, Gu Jinchong happened to hear these words while passing by. I pointed at Gu Jinchong. Gu Jinchong is no longer a member of the general's residence now. I don't dare meddle in his affairs anymore. My eyes were slightly red, and I looked utterly frightened. What are you pretending for? In the past, Whenever I had trouble, wasn't it always you who stepped in to resolve it, and now you say you don't dare? In the past, I was like a dog kept by you, Gu Jinyan, with no freedom. Gu Jinchong exaggeratedly recounted how I mistreated him, saying how difficult life had been for him in the general's residence. The crowd expressed sympathy for what he had gone through. Even the man who had been holding on to him earlier let go. 3, you're talking nonsense. A person squeezed out from the crowd, defending me more indignantly than I did myself. Since my father and mother passed away one after another, I, a girl in my teens, had to hold up the entire general's mansion. All the big and small matters in the household are weighed entirely on my shoulders. However, Gu Jinchong needed only to sit back comfortably and live as a pampered freeloader. The reason the general's manor still has a place in the capital and hasn't been looked down upon is also thanks to the good deeds I've repeatedly done over the years. Every year, I set up porridge stalls to distribute congee. During the flood disaster in Jiangnan, I was the one who took the lead in donating money, and only then did those wealthy young masters and ladies follow suit, and the lack of freedom in Gu Jinchong's eyes was nothing more than my hope that, as a man, he would make something of himself and one day uphold the family name. The ones I wouldn't let him associate with were all infamous loafers and troublemakers who spent their time flirting with cats and dogs. I was brought to tears. Someone actually painstakingly listed all my hardships. How did you, Gu Jinchong, repay Miss Gu? You publicly tarnished her innocence in front of all the guests, and you still refused to change your ways. You even colluded with outsiders to harm your own legitimate elder sister. You're worse than an animal. Fortunately, Miss Gu knows what's what and kicked a wolf-hearted ingrate like you out of the family long ago. I covered my face with a handkerchief and cried, with genuine emotion. After this incident, whether in the eyes of the powerful or the common people, Gu Jinchong had completely become a rat everyone wanted to be. Every time he went out, he was pelted with rotten vegetables. I thought he would at least be quiet for a while. I never expected that I had underestimated the malice of human nature, for my father was falsely accused of treason by the faction of the right chancellor. King Qi led the government troops to search my father's study and found letters colluding with the enemy country. In the main hall, Gu Jinchong stood up to testify. He spoke with complete certainty, repeatedly claiming that my father had discussed it with him before he was taken away. Your humble servant has turned against his own family for the sake of justice this time, because I cannot bear to see your majesty deceived, nor the world deceived. May your majesty severely punish the remaining members of the Gu clan to uphold the national law. Gu Jinchong was playing a very fine game. He talked about putting righteousness above family, but his name was not on the Gu clan genealogy. No matter how the emperor punished the Gu family, he would remain safe. I confronted Gu Jinchong, but the evidence they fabricated had no flaws at all. I didn't even know when that letter had been placed in my father's study, and I had no way to defend myself. The right chancellor requested the emperor to issue an edict, ordering the general's mansion's clan relatives to be immediately confiscated and exiled. I, the only daughter, was thrown into prison and sentenced to be executed in the autumn. Ever since rumors spread through the palace that I was to be made empress, the emperor's favor toward me was plain for all to see. Gu Jinchong was delighted that I was about to be thrown into prison. Yet he did not know that Prince Qi and the right chancellor were plotting something even bigger. They all seemed certain that the emperor would protect me. After court dismissed, even the chief eunuch at the emperor's side secretly pleaded for me. The emperor issued an edict ordering me confined to the general's residence, forbidding me to go outside. He said the matter would be decided after the truth was investigated. 5. Within a few days, word spread throughout the capital that the emperor was incompetent and had been seduced by a woman's charms. A group of scholars wrote a manifesto denouncing Lady Gu on behalf of the realm, condemning me as a demoness. They accused the emperor's conduct of bearing the signs of a fallen dynasty, but when the authorities came to arrest them, they could not find those scholars no matter where they searched. The capital was in a state of unrest for a time. I sat in the emperor's imperial study, going through the list in my hand. All the people around the emperor who had been bought off by the Prince Qi had been identified. The Prince Qi and the right chancellor had colluded with each other as early as 2 years ago. It's actually faster than in the previous life. Your Majesty can just take advantage of this to catch all these people in one fell swoop and save a lot of time. It's just that you'll have to endure a little longer. As long as she could get her revenge, none of this mattered. Besides Gu Jinchong, the Prince of Qi could forget about getting away too. If I hadn't confirmed that the emperor had also been reborn, it wouldn't have been this easy for me to deal with the Prince of Qi. The Prince of Qi's hidden power had already grown beyond the emperor's control. The reason I kept Gu Jincheng alive and wanted to deal with the Prince of Qi was that he still had great use. The emperor asked me jokingly, when everything is over, if I were truly to make Yener my empress, what do you think? I looked into the eyes of this son of heaven and remained silent. He was the same age as my father, yet he carried more of the majesty of an emperor than my father did. Only in front of me would he shed the dignity he showed before others and become like an ordinary middle-aged man. In my previous life, after the Prince of Qi broke into the imperial palace, the emperor always stood in front of me. Even after the Prince of Qi pierced his chest with a sword, he still begged the Prince of Qi to spare me. To me, he was someone who was both like an elder brother and a father. But in this life, I don't want to keep getting caught up in the struggles of the harem. King Qi and the right chancellor had gone mad. They were already fooling around with the concubine-born younger brother right there on the street. The officers and soldiers exchanged glances, not daring to provoke either of them, disperse the onlookers and evacuate the crowd of common people. By the time the people sent by the emperor pulled the three apart, the younger half-brother had already passed out and was bleeding non-stop. The word spread quickly from person to person among the onlookers. The younger half-brother's body was covered in whip marks, with fresh wounds layered over old ones. There had originally been rumors circulating, and now they were seeing the truth with their own eyes. For a time, their scandal eclipsed the general's mansion's treasonous act of colluding with the enemy. King Qi had originally enjoyed an excellent reputation among the common people. After this incident, whenever the people spoke of him, all they remembered was him fooling around with a man in the street. A shocking scandal shook the imperial court. The emperor ordered the Prince of Qi to return to his fief to recuperate. The right chancellor was temporarily confined to his residence for reflection, perhaps believing he still had hope. The Prince of Qi, though filled with resentment when he left, remained rational in the end. The night before he left, he invited me to his residence for a chat. As soon as I stepped through the gate, I was stunned by the scene before me. In the iron cage set up outdoors, Gu Jincheng had no real cover. A few dogs, led by the servants of the Prince Qi's manor, stood not far away, barking restlessly and agitatedly. The King of Qi looked at me with a cruel smile. I investigated afterward. The reason the right minister and I lost control was entirely due to a drug that your younger brother had taken earlier. This drug had no effect on Gu Jincheng, but it clouded their minds and made them act recklessly. I was careless and fell for your brother-sister scheme, but it doesn't matter. I will come back, but before you leave, I must give you a grand gift. I had originally planned to throw your dear little brother into the Nanfeng Hall to make him a whore, but I've thought of a more amusing way. At the Qi prince's command, the iron cage was opened. The dog was untied, free from restraint. They all pounced toward Gu Jincheng at once. The illegitimate younger brother cowered in the corner in terror. When he saw me, he stretched out his hand toward me desperately. His originally white, jade-like fingers scraped across the ground, leaving streaks of blood. Elder sister, I was wrong. Please save me. I'll never dare to do it again. I really know I was wrong, from beginning to end. I watched without blinking, just as in the previous life, when Gu Jincheng watched me be torn apart by 5 horses. When Gu Jincheng was brought back to the general's residence by me, there wasn't a single patch of good flesh left on him. The servants who carried him all turned away in disgust, as if even looking at him would dirty their eyes. Gu Jincheng was already on the verge of death, and the physician declared that he would not survive the night. He struggled, wanting to speak to me alone. I waved the servants away, not at all afraid he might play any tricks. Elder sister, I was wrong, utterly, grievously wrong. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. What has happened to me today is my own doing. Regarding the matters of the King of Qi and the right chancellor, I told eldest sister, I hope it will be of use to you. The reason the King of Qi is not afraid, even though the emperor has now driven him back to his fief, is that he has secretly stationed 60,000 troops in Shu. As for the right chancellor, because of his physical condition, he cannot tolerate even the slightest scent of osmanthus. I am not afraid that Gu Jincheng would still deceive me at this point. What he hates most right now are the Prince of Qi and the right chancellor. Yet I find it strange. Would the Prince of Qi and the right chancellor treat Gu Jincheng as a plaything and let him know so many deadly secrets? The right chancellor died in his own residence. The imperial physician diagnosed that he had suffocated to death from smelling osmanthus blossoms. His followers felt the matter was not that simple. Upon further investigation, it turned out that the youngest grandson of the Right Chancellor had somehow picked up an osmanthus blossom from somewhere. An unwitting servant had placed it in the Right Chancellor's study. The emperor took the opportunity to purge the court. The people of the Prince of Qi and the Right Chancellor's faction were all purged. It was found out during questioning that my father had been wrongly accused, and that it was the Prince of Qi and the Right Chancellor who framed him. They were the ones truly colluding with the enemy. The King of Qi colluded with the enemy and betrayed the country, framing loyal ministers. The emperor issued an edict to escort him to the capital for trial. The King of Qi directly declared rebellion in his fief, when he went to mobilize those 60,000 private soldiers. The leaders who had already been turned came and caught him in a trap. The next day, he was escorted to the capital. After all, the Qi king was an imperial relative. On the surface, the emperor placed him under house arrest, but in private, he gave me the power to deal with him. Gu Jincheng had a strong life force and actually managed to tough it out. He begged me to take him to see the Qi king's execution by lingering death. In the torture chamber, Gu Jincheng, like a madman, rushed up and tore at Prince Qi with his teeth, biting off chunks of flesh piece by piece. Prince Qi's howls never ceased, fading from shrill to weak. It took a full 3 days of flaying before Prince Qi finally died. After he died, Gu Jincheng threw himself into the oil cauldron in the torture chamber. He struggled. This filthy body has no need to remain in this world. Gu Jincheng shed tears, remaining completely silent. At the final moment, he opened his mouth. There was no sound, yet I could tell what he was saying from his lips. Eldest sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I erected Gu Jincheng's cenotaph in the outskirts of the city. Once everything had settled, the thing I had feared did not happen. The emperor respected my wishes and did not force me into the palace. Before leaving, he gave me a jade pendant he had always carried with him. No matter what happened to me, if I took the jade pendant to find him, he would not refuse. I did not take it after that. We probably will never have any further involvement. Why make an unnecessary move? I never got married. I left the general's residence to my adopted younger brother, and the orphanage in the capital became my home. Watching batch after batch of children grow up, my heart found something to hold on to. The realm also grew ever more prosperous under the emperor's rule. Life was plain, yet abundant. One day, I dreamed of Gu Jincheng when he was still very young. He held a travelogue in his hands and offered it to me as if presenting a treasure. Eldest sister, when I grow up, I want to write a book like this too, so that those who come after us will know what those places they have never set foot in are like. After waking from the dream, I suddenly felt a longing for the beautiful rivers and mountains Gu Jincheng had spoken of. Before setting out, I went to visit Gu Jincheng's cenotaph. The white flowers on the grave mound nodded straight at me as the wind blew. I gently stroked them. The beautiful rivers and mountains you wanted to see, I'll go see them for you. Extra chapter. Gu Jincheng, as the youngest son of the general's residence, even though I was not born of the main wife, I received the love and pampering of the entire household from childhood. After father passed away, my eldest sister still treated me as she always had. I knew I had been born with a fine-looking face. Whether maidservants or servants, they always loved to stare at me. As I grew older, I became thoroughly sick of those increasingly blatant gazes. I told my eldest sister, and she replaced all the servants in the residence. From then on, in this general's manner, no one dared stare openly at my face anymore. The tutor who first taught me loved reading travelogues. Influenced by what I heard and saw, I began to yearn for the magnificent and beautiful scenery described in books. I set my mind on traveling to every inch of land under heaven to write the travelogue of Gu Jincheng himself. But yearning was only yearning. Since father passed away, my eldest sister has become increasingly strict with me. She even kept a tight rein on me and would not let me leave the estate lightly. Even when I did go out, a large group of guards would always follow behind me. Even the only 2 times I climbed over the wall and slipped out of the estate, I was made to suffer family discipline after returning, at the eldest sister's order. Not only that, when those former classmates invited me, eldest sister would refuse on my behalf. I became a puppet controlled in her palm. Unwilling to accept it, I began to resist. Through countless mischievous acts, I angered away the father and son whom eldest sister had invited to our residence to instruct me. I saw through it long ago. The young servant attending me was gossiping behind my back, saying that my eldest sister would be married off sooner or later. How she fares in her husband's family in the future will all depend on me holding things up for her. So she forced me to strive to better myself, all for her own sake. I happened to see the invitation my eldest sister had received. The Prince of Chi was going to host a banquet after turning 14. I had never once stepped outside the manor gates again. This time, no matter what, I had to attend the banquet. I thought my eldest sister would be as she usually was. I had already made up my mind to run away from home to show my attitude, but my eldest sister relented. I was free. Everything went so smoothly that it felt unreal to me. Everything that happened afterward came so suddenly that it gave me no time at all to think it through carefully. I only wanted freedom. So why were those people so despicable? Chi Wang and I were friends of noble character. It wasn't that I couldn't understand the occasional lust that flickered in his eyes, but he was the first kindred spirit I ever made. I didn't want to blame him, so I placed the blame on someone else. It was as if I had been bewitched, harboring hostility toward my eldest sister, until I was driven out of the family home and fell into hell. I regret it. Unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in this world. Thrown into a dog cage by the Prince of Chi, I thought I was going to die, but in the end, I didn't die. Instead, I remembered the events of my previous life. After my eldest sister died, the Prince of Chi ascended the throne. I petitioned to resign from office, and the Prince of Chi granted it. I thought that at last I could embrace freedom. After packing my luggage, I set off to travel the world. The very next day, just after leaving the city, I was abducted by the Right Chancellor. He locked me in his mansion and whipped and tormented me on the bed every day. Later, he even invited several ministers from the court, and even King Chi, who had already become emperor, to join in. I became a household courtesan for those few of them to amuse themselves with it. Later, the empress discovered it. She forced the Prince of Chi to throw me to the wolves. The scenes from my previous life surfaced one by one, so it turned out that my elder sister had shielded me from so many storms. It was only right that she hated me. Even I hated myself for being so foolish and naive. I told my elder sister everything I could remember about the King of Chi and the Right Chancellor. When throwing himself into the frying pan, the sights of the past flashed by in a blur. In the end, it is still somewhat of a pity. He had longed for a journey through the world for 2 lifetimes. If there could still be another lifetime, forget it. I've lived this badly in both lives. Heaven might as well not give me another life. After hearing this story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share them in the comments. I look forward to hearing your voice.